Being that it is now 6 p.m. on Monday, December 11th, 2017, I'll call to order the Board of Selectmen's meeting. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So this evening, the board has a very special presentation to give, and I'd like to invite Private First Class Joseph LaPlante to come up to the table and have a seat. We have a proclamation from the board. The proclamation honoring the Chevalier of the Legion of Honor recipient, Private First Class Joseph E. LaPlante. Whereas the town of Webster is a community who honors all veterans, active military members, and public safety personnel whose mission is to protect the well-being and freedom of others. And whereas Private First Class Joseph LaPlante was born on December 18, 1923 in North Oxford, Mass., and enlisted in the U.S. Army on March 22, 1943, while a resident in Webster, Mass. And whereas Private First Class LaPlante served with the 57th Chemical Maintenance Company, serving as a truck driver in chemical warfare, working directly with chemical mortars. And whereas Private First Class LaPlante served our country during World War II and fought in 2 major campaigns during the liberation of France, Normandy, and northern France. And whereas Private First Class LaPlante returned to Webster, Mass. After being discharged from the U.S. Army on October 19, 1945, and continued to serve his community by actively volunteering with other veterans, creating the Webster Court of Honor Monument as a tribute to local veterans, and hosting an annual reception for the Band of Brothers, a local veterans group. And whereas on November 27, 2017, Consul General Valerie of France arrived in Boston to bestow the highest honor France can award a U.S. veteran, appointment as a Chevalier of the Legion of Honor. And whereas this is awarded as a symbol of gratitude for those who risked their lives and played a decisive role in the liberation of France. And whereas Private First Class LaPlante has received other prestigious awards, including the Purple Heart, the Bronze Service Star, the Good Conduct Medal, the National Defense Service Medal, and the European, African, Middle Eastern Campaign Ribbon while serving our country. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Town of Webster Board of Selectmen, do join with the citizens and employees of the Town of Webster to hereby honor Private First Class Joseph E. LaPlante, a veteran of the United States Army and a long-standing citizen of our town, for his selfless devotion to our country and the country of France. We congratulate you in being recognized with this prestigious appointment by the country of France as a Chevalier of the Legion of Honor. Your community is very proud of you, and we thank you for your service. Signed, the entire Board of Selectmen. addition to the proclamation, the Board of Selectmen also has an engraved plaque for Private First Class Joseph Plant, which reads, "For dedication and determination, the Board of Webster Selectmen."
You know, the real heroes are the 64 fellows from Webster that didn't come back. Their names are etched in the red bricks in the Court of Honor. Those are the real heroes. Not me, but them. They never came back. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Joe McKenna is also here. He'd like to say a few words.
I am Representative Joe McKenna. I'm here as well with the citation from the House. I was deeply moved and honored to be part of the ceremony several weeks ago when the Consul General of France pinned the medal on Joe and appointed him the Chevalier. And I think it's deeply moving that we're here again to do another ceremony. That just shows how deeply touched we are here in Webster to have you as one of our friends and neighbors, and deeply grateful we are for your service. And I couldn't put it any better that the true heroes are the ones, unfortunately, who aren't with us today to celebrate. But on behalf of the entire membership of the House, be it hereby known to all that the Mass House of Representatives offers its sincerest congratulations to Private First Class Joseph LaPlante in recognition of the auspicious occasion of your appointment as a Chevalier of the French Legion of Honor for your exceptional bravery and courage during the liberation of France in World War II. The entire membership extends its very best wishes and expresses the hope for future good fortune and continued success in all endeavors. Signed on the 27th of November by the Speaker of the House and by myself. So just so deeply grateful for all of your service over the years. Thank you.
Barrington Hook, left face. Left face. Column right, march. Column left. Column left.
Did you want to do the announcements next, or do you want me to continue?
You can just make it. I can do it.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm glad we could do that for Private First Class Joseph LaPlante. Just real quick, I want to make an announcement that we will be closing on Friday, December 22nd through Monday, December 25th, as well as Friday, December 29th through Monday, January 1st for the holidays. Town Hall will be closed. The library will actually be open on those Fridays until, I believe it's noon.
Next item on the agenda is the public hearing for a Bring Your Own Beer application for Thai lemongrass. At this time, I'll entertain a motion from the board to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, generally, you'll pull the board for opening of the public hearing.
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman Dovgevich?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Jolda?
Yes. So I understand we have a request for a Bring Your on beer application for Thai lemongrass. And you are for, bring your own bottle. Yes.
So do you want to just tell us briefly what you want to do at the restaurant?
Okay. Hello, my name is Daphne Lala Sanvilai. I'm the owner of Thai Lemongrass and manager. And as January 1st, we want to go BYOB.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the board?
There's no liquor license now?
No, they currently have
Beer and wine?
a beer and wine license, but they're not seeking renewal of that at this time. So that will expire December 31st, 2017, and that will open them up to being able to obtain a bring your own bottle license.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion, second to approve. Any further discussion? If not, Jen, will you poll the board?
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman Dobgevich?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Jolda?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
And I'll entertain a motion to close the public
So
hearing.
moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, Jen, will you poll the board?
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman Dobgevich?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Jolda?
Yes. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing for application of alteration of premises on the alcoholic beverage licenses for Indian Ranch Incorporated. If I could have a motion from the board to open the public hearing?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll be recusing from this topic.
Okay. And Jen, if you poll the board?
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman Dobgevich?
Yes.
Chairman Jolda?
Yes. And we have anyone here appearing on behalf of Indian Ranch, Attorney Sullivan, if I remember correctly, and
Good
Suzette?
evening, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the board, please. This is an application before the board to amend the previous license so as to include the improvements that have recently been done at Indian Ranch. They essentially would be the enclosure of the pavilion area that previously had been open air and alcohol was available in that area, as well as a second floor right over the pavilion that would now be planned for a restaurant and bar. And Suzette Ron is with me, and she could give any details that the board would be interested in. I've also taken the opportunity to copy the plan of the improvements. I know that this whole project has been vetted throughout the town, various boards, the planning board, et cetera. But perhaps members of the board have not been able to actually see the improvements and the up-to-date plan. So with your permission, Mr. Chairman, if I could
Absolutely.
give you some of these, pass around. I would suggest that the only outside change is a parking plan that has been implemented with the input of the planning board under the site plan review. And we think that that certainly improves the entire organizational concept of the parking area for both the concerts as well as the restaurant and the bar.
Absolutely.
When will the improvements be completed?
So the downstairs extension of the banquet hall should be done in May, and the upstairs will be done soon following June, July.
You just recently remodeled the existing banquet hall area, right?
Correct, that's finished.
And Jen, have you received everything that you've needed in order?
Mhm.
Right, is there any other questions from the board for
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
representatives?
if I may, two things. Number one, on your liability insurance, look, you got too many zeros and a comma, just nitpicking a little bit. You got $1 billion instead of $1 million.
Have you over-insured?
But I'll change that to a B.
Yes.
No, I'm just kidding. But I notice you have, the parking would all be on this side here, am I correct?
Correct.
Which is fine. And it would be all enclosed, so you wouldn't have anyone outside, except if you have a concert or something of that nature. But I'm talking about the restaurant part.
The
And
restaurant, it does have an outside deck area on the very top.
Oh, at the very top,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But the first floor would all, that's where the old patio, so to speak, was, a pavilion. That's all
Right.
enclosed.
So that'll be enclosed.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board members? If not, before we take a vote, since it is a public hearing, I'd ask if there's anyone in the audience who's wishing to speak in opposition to the approval. Yes, go ahead. Please come forward and state your name.
My name is Faith Rubin. I'm a resident of the Cove and very close to Indian Ridge. There are other residents here. There is liquor being served on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We have to put up with the drunks. There's liquor being served in the restaurant. We're going to have to put up with the drunks. There is liquor served, hard liquor, on the Indian Princess whenever it goes out. We have to deal with that. The more liquor, the louder it is. If you allow outdoor drinking, it's a travesty. We are pleading with you as residents of the Inner Cove, curtail outdoor drinking. You're going to say Waterfronts has it. Waterfronts, as Rocky knows, has been here since 55 years ago. Its grandfather. Point Breeze is no place near the water. It's high above, and it's controlled. People are not walking around as it's a bar. It is an outdoor restaurant high above. As residents, we are pleading with you, give us this once, control the outdoor drinking. What more can we ask? There's drinking boat, shows, and the restaurant. Control it, keep it indoors, please, Chairman.
Thank you, Faith.
Thank you.
This all has to do with moving upstairs, correct? Moving the license to the upstairs portion.
Right, correct.
Right, because Indian Ranch currently has an existing license that is for serving at the outdoor pavilion currently, and they're looking to expand that to go to the upstairs.
If I could suggest,
We're
Mr.
setting a
Chairman,
precedent, sir. Can you imagine every restaurant it will be carte blanche. You're giving them an open door. Let's all serve outside. If you remember, Carl's and/or now the swinging chicken had outdoor drinking in the back. The neighbors pleaded with the selectmen. It was closed. It was closed. But can you imagine restaurants and venues, if this goes through outdoor drinking? Please, please contain it, selectmen. Please control it.
Yes?
I think the concern is that right now the outdoor drinking is Friday, Saturday, and Sundays. It's minimal. It's not every day of the week. And if there's a bar outside, and I don't know if there is or not, but if there's a bar on that outdoor deck, that deck overlooks our backyards, first of all, and it will be very loud. And I would hope that we can at least sleep with our windows open at night. There's a lot of noise, and I think our other concern is what we anticipated with the Indian Princess has also turned out to be a lot more noise than we expected, and we're just trying to foresee problems in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you. John?
The Indian Princess is licensed.
Just one moment. I'm recognizing the the Board of Selectmen secretary, and then I'll get right to you.
The Indian Princess is licensed through the state, so that is not a local licensing authority issue.
Correct.
You have no jurisdiction over that.
Thank you for that clarification. Yes?
I just have a question. So we're saying the downstairs is closed, the upstairs is open? Is that what I understand?
It's closed.
Maybe I'm not
No.
understanding.
No, it's closed.
Is the second floor going to be an open deck, basically? And the downstairs is closed pavilion? Is that
Yeah.
what I'm hearing or not?
There's a wraparound porch, probably about the size of what's at Point Breeze.
Okay.
That goes
So you're
around.
going to have limited outdoor seating during
Correct.
restaurant hours?
Right, and the bar is inside.
Correct. Okay.
You can eat and have a drink outside on the patio, but the bar itself is indoors.
Okay.
And all the first floor is enclosed.
Correct.
All
Yeah.
first floor is enclosed.
Correct. What used to be the outdoor pavilion is now enclosed, is going to be
But
enclosed.
the upstairs will be,
The restaurant.
portion of that will be open
Right, outdoor seating,
seating.
yes.
Now, would there be a time frame on that, or is that going to go till 2 and 3 in the morning?
Well, it wouldn't be able to go until 2 or 3 in the morning because Mass General laws state you can only serve alcohol until 1 a.m.
So,
But that issue of timing would be covered when we vote to issue the license for the operating hours.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I may, and please correct me if I'm wrong, even if whether we approve or disapprove, this all goes before the ABCC, one way or the other. So
Correct.
we technically don't have the final say.
That is correct. It's still, we're the first step in the process, and then it'll go to the Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission for review and final approval. Yes, John?
As your licensing agent, I did call and speak with the ABCC as I was aware that there were some concerns about this property and the changing of this license. Currently, the premises is already licensed, and though they may only use the license Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they are entitled to use it Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., Sunday noon to 1 a.m. They just choose to use it, they have chosen to use it on limited hours. I talked to them about the change in the premises and what exactly has transpired, thinking that if you went the route of rejecting the expansion of the premises, what grounds would that have to be based on? You would be hard-pressed to find a reason where the premises is already licensed and was open and is now being pretty much all enclosed except for that outdoor seating area. The board there tells me that you would be hard pressed to find a reason not to approve this, that they would likely bounce it back to you and reject it.
Thank you.
If I could also just make one final comment, Mr.
absolutely.
Chairman. The history will reflect that both the Robert family, during their ownership of Indian Ranch, as well as Sadowski's family, who were the prior owners, have a remarkably clean record as far as the serving of alcohol, and it's pretty devoid of any infractions. And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. We have a track record, and it's a good track record. And I think it urges that they be given the opportunity to continue serving the entire community. And I urge you to approve this petition.
Thank you. Before I entertain a motion to close the public hearing, is there anyone else that wishes to speak?
Could I just make sure it's in the meeting notes that the residents do not agree? And when this woman has said this, she finds, or someone finds no reason to object, what about the neighbors? What about the neighbors who put up with drinking on the Princess? What about us? Drinking on that, you know, their outdoor seating, but people will come out with their drinks till 1 a.m. in the morning. There are older residents, there are children. We are the abutters. Could you take that into consideration, Shannon?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Seeing that no one else is looking to speak at this time, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is there any discussion?
If I may, just one more time, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely.
Please, thank you. Again, it might be the first step, but as our secretary, who I have a lot of faith in, and she does her homework, that's for sure. It's not so much just us, Faith, or even the neighbors. It's the state is basically would bounce it back at us anyway, one way or the other. I'm hoping that, number one, the place takes off well and does well without, but I've always said this too, a good neighbor policy. I told that to your father. I thought he was going to kick me in the head, but the idea of it is, that's all I ask, because you do have other people around there. And I'm assuming, since you're a responsible person, I think so, that you would control any person or persons that gets out of control. If they're going to have a snack or something to eat and have a beer or whatever they're going to do out on the deck, like at, say, Point Breeze as an example, you know, but if they're going to be out there swinging from the rafters, I mean, you know.
No, this is gonna be an upscale restaurant, so I'm looking to keep, you know, it's gonna be similar to Point Breeze, where I think people are out having a nice meal. I don't expect people to be out, you know, the bar's inside, not outside.
So it would limit, actually, the way I'm thinking of this right now, Mr. Chairman, is, it's just my thought, that you're almost containing the sound or any noise or any rowdiness. It would be enclosed, similar to what we went through on Lake Street. And Faith, my great-grand-uncle did own Waterfront Mary's back in the 30s. Don't hold that against me, dear.
I'm glad I came tonight.
You learned something. Thank you, counsel. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion? If not, Jen, will you poll the board for closing of the public hearing?
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman Dovgevich?
Yes.
Chairman Jolda?
Yes. Now that we've closed the public hearing, I'll entertain a motion to approve the alteration of premise license for Indian Ranch Recreation, Inc.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, Jen, will you poll the board?
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman Dovgevich?
Yes.
Chairman Jolda?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
As long as it's enclosed and under control.
Mr. Chairman, I don't remember if you announced that we're going to be skipping over the appointment of Patrolman Aaron DeSantis.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so his wife was unable to make it tonight, so we figured we'd pass and do that on another night she's available.
Perfect, thank you. All right, moving to the next item on the agenda is discussion with Recreation Director Carol Marsham regarding a triathlon at Memorial Beach.
I swear this is mostly pictures.
Thank you.
You know their reading level,
Oh, that's nice.
I wasn't gonna say that.
Says the town administrator on the anniversary of his hiring.
Yeah.
We have to give them proper notice, right?
I apologize. I would have had this in your packet earlier, but I literally got it an hour ago from the company that is interested in doing a triathlon in the town of Webster. They originally were thinking of starting it summer of 2019. They actually might want to try and squeeze one in for 2018. One thing that's very important to them is town support. No contracts or anything right now. We're in the very initial stages. Met with them once. I did talk with Deputy Chief Shaw to see if there were any incidents from past triathlons that we need to spearhead before we get too far into it. And he said everything has run very well in the past. Everything that I've heard from this company, from people that know them, is that they are top-notch to deal with, and that's what I've seen so far by them. I've met with them once, and they're coming out again on the 22nd. They really do their homework. They've got maps already. They've got their plan. They will, the one downside is when they're here, they will want to take over the beach for the weekend. They're looking at the last weekend in July. But they're talking about, you know, anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 people. So they would take over the beach. That is, like I say, the only downside. And we made it clear you can't do it on a holiday weekend. That was one of the things. The other weekends, I think, you know, as long as people know ahead of time when they get their stickers that they can't use the beach that weekend, I think we can work with them. We're going to extend the beach season this year, so people will have more use of the beach anyway. So it's a little give and take. Like I say, we're not in any contract negotiations or anything right now. It's just the very initial stages. Wanted to run it by you, see if there's any concerns that you want me to bring up to him next time we meet. Anything that you have questions on. And like I said, I know this is a big packet to throw at you right now, and you're more than welcome to look at it at your leisure and give me some contact.
I, for one, am very much in support of this idea. This will bring a lot of people to the community, and those people will have to shop at our stores and eat at our restaurants, and I think it'll be a great economic development boon, as well as just a fun thing and activity for the town.
Yeah.
Yes, I know in the past we've hosted other triathlons at the beach for a number of years.
I think we still do, don't
We haven't done them in a while.
Oh, we haven't?
We haven't done them in a while. We've done 5Ks and stuff, but no triathlons in a while. And this is a big one. I mean, Randy might even have to train to get through this one. It's a 56-mile ride.
Wow.
So it is, they're going to have to coordinate with other communities as well, but we would be the hosting community. But like I said, they've been top-notch to deal with so far. And I've asked a couple of people who have done races with them, and they say that they're excellent. So it looks good. You know, it's, like I say, still very new. Not asking for any signatures or any vote at this point, just, you know, a smile. But I wanted to run it by you. And like I said, look it over, and if you've got any past concerns, feel free to email me, and I'll pass on the concerns and get an answer for you.
Yep, the main thing is with past events is just ensuring they have sufficient liability coverage for the event.
Yep. Yep.
Police and fire or whatever, naturally.
Yes.
Perfect.
And the only other question I have is just covering the town's costs with this police, fire.
Yeah,
and
yeah, they would
so-
definitely be paying all the permit fees and the detail fees. That would be on them. And
And what do they do, Carol, with regards to losing the revenue for that weekend? Do they do a donation to the town of some sort?
that we've still
Portion
got to
of
get
the-
into. When researching triathlons, there is generally a fee that is paid to the hosting town above and beyond any permit fees and detail fees. We haven't really gotten into that. Like I said, we met Thanksgiving weekend. He came out to, they're based out of Virginia Beach, but he, the president is actually from Warwick, Rhode Island. So he knows the area. And he came out for his holiday. We met Thanksgiving weekend, did a drive around, talked a little bit, and now he's coming out again on the 22nd to do some more serious driving around and some more serious talk. So we would get into any donation or money coming our way then, I would think.
Yeah, but that's a good point. We can look and see what the average amount is that we bring in
Yeah.
over a weekend and
Yeah.
at least request that.
And are they looking to do it in 18? I heard you.
The initial plan, he didn't think they would be able to swing it for 2018, so they were going to do for 2019. Because a race like this takes training. People who are doing it have their races already mapped out. But he thinks for you know, a first year, they could get a decent amount. It wouldn't be a huge amount, but which might be good. It might give us a nice segue into that big amount if they were able to get a race going of, you know, 800 or 900 people. And that's still a nice number, and it would give us a segue into, you know, if it grows to 1,500 or 2,000, you know.
Do we have any, through the chair, sorry.
Yes.
Andrew, do we have any idea of how many people participated? I think there were women events. Did the dance
The Danskin one?
Was that over 1,000?
I don't. I tried to find something online with that, and because they're really not active anymore, there's nobody to contact, and there's no, I found their race route, but I couldn't find how many participants.
I just remember that, you know, some of the issues there where you had backup on Route 395 coming south at exit 2. There was an accident there.
Well, I vaguely remember, and you might be able to help me.
It's just something to keep in mind.
Close exits 1 and 2 for races?
Yeah, normally what we do is we close off the on-ramps. The state police are contacted, they provide a detail, they close off the on-ramps to do that.
Yeah, 'cause, and that would alleviate, because I can remember I used to have to go to Worcester, and I would go the back way to get on and off, but.
And
You know,
I believe
could
they
never
also
get out of my road.
Right, but I think they also had signs posted on 395 warning of the event
Yes.
date and whatnot.
A week or two in advance, they
Yeah.
had the electronic
Yeah, it was
signs.
pretty well notified. It wasn't a surprise to me anyway, when I got up in the morning and had to go to Webster. And it is only really for half a day, you know, that part of it. You know, the race will be done by 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and everything will be opened back up.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the board?
Do you think you can swim that far?
I don't know if I can ride that far.
Right.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, 56 miles.
Yeah, it's a long one. It's a long one, but,
All right, well, thank you so much.
Yeah, there you go.
all right, thank you.
You have one of those, don't you?
It's not that funny.
Right, moving on with our agenda. The next item is a status update from the Webster American with Disabilities Act Committee. So I'll ask Anne Marie to come up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Anne Marie Peperato. I am the chairperson for the ADA Commission, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act Commission. We consist of a number of officers, myself as chair, Linda Canoyer is vice chair. Unfortunately, there's a few members that are not here tonight. Laurie Shaloni, our secretary. Steve Wertzweiler, the treasurer, just tendered his resignation as of the 1st of December. Our ADA coordinator is Mr. Ted Chitra, building commissioner as well as coordinator. Our sitting selectman is Selectman Robert Miller, and also the town administrator, Mr. Doug Willardson, is on the commission also. Members include Angela Fleming, Heather Richards, who are both not here tonight. Michelle Boulay is here, and we also have an associate member, Mark Kanicki. He's here also tonight. Our meetings are open meetings and are held on the third Monday of the month. Agendas and minutes are posted with the town clerk and online on the town's website for public viewing. We also have an ADA link off of the website, which is at this time still a work in progress. It's not interactive yet. You can look, get information, get some of the ADA policies that have been accepted by the town. But eventually you will be able to interact, ask questions, make comments, or whatever. The mission of the ADA Commission is to empower persons with disabilities to take an active role in their lives. It is the belief of the Commission that the disabled are equal members of society with equal access. And it's the purpose of the Commission to inform, educate disabled as to agencies and resources through which they can develop and maintain their independence. There is in the packet, I believe you have a sample of the website. A listing of our activities included October 17th, 2016. At the annual town meeting, an article was presented to accept the provision of Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 8J, for the purpose of establishing a disability commission. We were formerly a disability committee. The article was amended to include that the commission be a 9-member commission. The article and the amendment was voted on and approved by the town. So at that point, we went from committee to commission status. January of 2017, election of officers was held. The positions are 1 year. So every year, every January, we will be having an election of officers. Bylaws, as recommended by the Mass Office on Disabilities, was amended and approved by the ADA Commission members. May 8th, again at an annual town meeting, an article was presented for acceptance of Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 22G, to enable the ADA COD to apply for grant funding, as well as access to monies collected on ADA parking fines. Article was voted on and accepted by the town. In June, the ADA Commission applied for an ADA grant that was being administered by Mass Office on Disabilities, MOD. The application was accepted and an award was granted by MOD, which included a beach mat, which allows people in wheelchairs to go down to through the sand to the water's edge, because you can't navigate a wheelchair in sand. So it's quite large. That was in place over the summer. We have an handicap accessible swing and also the water wheelchair. September 13th, an ADA public info session was held at Golden Heights. Guest speaker included Jeffrey Dugan, Assistant Executive Director of the Mass Office on Disabilities, and we also had a meet and greet for the new town's administrators, so the residents could get to meet him.
They were very excited about that.
Sure, yeah. Only 3 people live. Oh.
Said, who is this teenager?
On October 17th, the ADA Commission offered an info session at the Webster Senior Center. Topic was seniors are covered under the ADA Act too. On November 7th of 2017, the return follow-up visit was presented with the Senior Center so we could catch those that we missed the last time, and some people came back with questions and they wanted information. We had packets to hand out to them. So it seemed to be well accepted, you know. In speaking with the seniors, what we get all the time is, well, I'm not disabled, I'm a senior, I'm just old. Well, you know, and I'm sure Doug has heard me say it many a times, it's like, my response to them is, well, what's that wheelchair you're sitting in? You know, what's that oxygen tag? There's this misguided notion that if you're not receiving disability insurance, you're not disabled. You're on regular Social Security, you're 70 years old. You've had a stroke. You have COPD. I mean, those are definite disabilities. And a number of other things that you're come under the ADA Act. You are entitled to protection in that. So that's the purpose of those meetings, to try to get to the seniors. And, you know, it's not something bad for somebody to be disabled. You know, it seems like a real bad label. People don't want to be labeled like that. But there's nothing shameful about it. People, it happens for whatever reason. So we're trying to get the ADA Commission known in the town. So when we say ADA, I don't have to say ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act Commission, you get what's that. You know, that they'll know what we're about. And this is what we're trying to do. Our future endeavors would be continued public info sessions wherever we can get an audience. So we want to keep that as an ongoing thing. Development of an ADA pamphlet. A lot of ADA commissions in different towns do have a little pamphlet with all kinds of different information on it, you know, how to get in touch with us, and just helpful things that they need to know. And also grant applications as they become available. So, oh, and there's also, in the handout, this was a poster we had used. This is the logos that we've developed for the Town of Webster's ADA Commission. So we want to make it professional looking and catch the people's attention, so that when they see these symbols, that they will know what it's all about. And I respectfully submit that to the board.
Well, thank you. Do you have any questions or comments from board members?
I'll quickly add that Anne Marie is a great chair. She keeps the meetings well run, and you don't want to miss an assignment because she'll be after you.
So we're trying out. The commission has really, really worked hard this year. I mean, there was always something going on. And the requirement from MAUD is that we meet at least 5 or 6 times a year. We've only missed 1 month. That's the month of December, and I'm doing the annual report. So, you know, the effort is there, and there were slow times when we didn't even have a coordinator. We didn't know. I remember one time I came before the board and I said ADA Commission, and unfortunately the members looked at each other and said, the what? They didn't even know who we were. We had already been in place for 3 years. So here we are, here I am. And any help that you can give us, any assistance, suggestions, or whatever, we'd really, really appreciate that. And I want to thank Bob. He is, from the beginning, back in 2014.
That far back?
He's been there. I mean, really, and Ted's been good, and Doug, we need that kind of support from the town, too, because on our own, we can't do anything. So,
thank you very much.
Henry, what do you, just a quick question. What do you find your most challenging thing doing in the town? I'm sure it's not, I mean, working with Doug is great.
Well, you know, I mean, everything's a challenge. It seems like trying to, it's not a popular idea, okay? People don't want to talk about disabilities. You get a lot of, well, it's almost like it's catchy. They don't want to associate with people. I am disabled and have been disabled since I was 16. And at the beginning, I could not deal being near people that were disabled, because you go through the denial, you go through the anger, you go through that whole thing. Also, it's where do you go for help? You don't even know where to begin. I could be a poster child for the mass rehab. I went to mass rehab. They plugged me in. If my insurance wouldn't have covered it, they would have paid for my surgeries. They paid for my hearing aids. They paid for me to go to business college. So that, and I did become an employed person that bought my own home on my own, owned cars, held a job. I've been, you know, just retired maybe 8 years ago. Not because I wanted to, but with the economy the way it was, I would have continued on working. So I would never have been able to become that person if it weren't for these programs. But the programs are designed and set up as such that there are so many roadblocks that they throw at you that people get discouraged, they give up. It's just so frustrating. And I'm going through it now with my grandson. He's developmentally disabled. He's 26 years old. I'm his advocate. He was approved by DDS, which is the Department of Developmental Services, is receiving benefits because he is developmentally disabled. But now I'm fighting Social Security. Here are 2 federal and state programs, passed one, but the other one is, I mean, it's just unbelievable. It tends to get people to give up, get frustrated. So if we can reach out to people that are in the process, we don't provide services, we don't fill out forms, but maybe sometimes we can offer suggestions or just be that, I've been where you are, and, you know, just kind of give them a little reassurance. So, and there's a lot of things with the ADA Act. There's so many disabilities that are included in there. Every year it gets bigger and bigger, and where I am, we're dealing with the handicap parking spaces. Governor Baker just come in and raised the fines and increased the penalties because people don't take it seriously. I've had a number of people that I've said, hey, you're parking in and was greeted with a barrage of obscenities. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know the law, and I'm saying to myself.
Well, it sounds like the best thing we can do is get the word out that if people need help, we have the commission, and just getting the word out to people that there's help for them. So, thank you.
So,
also, you know, with some of the adaptations that they're making at the beach, people are looking at that, you know, that ramp, plastic ramp that goes down, people are using it, the same thing with the swing. So.
That's great.
because I think most truly disabled people don't want to be on the dole. They want to be able to help themselves and live as normal a life as they can. So you get this, we're not looking for a handout. We're looking for a hand up. If we can help you and get maybe the training or get you into a program or make you aware that these exist, then we've succeeded if we, you know, just manage with one person. So, I mean, it's been a lot of work, but you know, it can be very rewarding too. You know, when they put the mat down and there was feedback about people that, you know, they could actually go down to the water's edge. You know, I mean, that was a big deal. So for that, we were successful, I think, in that way.
If I may interrupt you, which is very unusual, I would never do that to you, dear, through the chair. When we all sat down and discussed what we could do, since the board had talked about making the beach more accessible to more people, et cetera, and get more use out of the beach, that was why we came up with that too. And of course, through the fearless leader here, you're the boss, and we came up with that, and thanks to Linda with a few things that she came up with, who's been absolutely extraordinary. My hat's off to you, because I can't wear one in a public building. But it's been remarkable how it's gone the last couple of years. We were a little stagnant there for a little bit, but leaps and bounds. I loved the fine increase, and as you saw on my Facebook page.
Oh, yes.
And actually, it's a twofer, because if we can do it with the ADA Commission getting a portion of, say, the fine, and then if somebody rips something off, then the police could get their fine for littering on a public way. And we did that. But thank you, Anne-Marie.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you, Linda and Michelle, and the rest of the commission, too.
Thank you.
We'll even thank Mark, too.
It's been fun, and Ann has really been a driving force behind it. She really is.
Next up, we have a status update from the Friends of Chester C. Corbin Library with Tom Claiborne.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Tom.
As you probably know, I'm Tom Claybart, and I'm president of the Friends of Chester C. Corbin Library. I wanted to meet with you tonight to discuss a fundraiser we're currently having for the new Gladys E. Kelly Public Library. I appreciate you adding me to your agenda this evening. I'd like to discuss our fundraiser with you for a couple of reasons. First, the funds that we raise will benefit both the new town library and the taxpayers of the town. Second, we intend to make cash donations to the library in the future that will need the Board of Selectmen's acceptance. First, let me tell you about the Friends of the Chester C. Corbin Library. The current name of our organization is Friends of the Chester C. Corbin Library. However, our name will be changed to Friends of the Gladys E. Kelly Public Library when the new library is open. I know there's a little bit of confusion. Why are we still Friends of the Chester C. Corbin Library? And that's why we're waiting for the new library to open. We are a nonprofit volunteer organization that supports the library in accordance with Section 501c3 of the IRS Code. Our mission is very simple: to provide support to the town of Webster's public library. We provide support by giving financial assistance and volunteer efforts to the library. Our efforts help improve and expand library services, facilities, and equipment, and to provide special programs for all ages. After the town approval for construction of the new library, the Friends made a decision to hold a fundraiser to provide financial support for the new library. The purpose of our fundraiser is twofold. First, to help the town of Webster pay for new library costs not eligible for reimbursement by the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners grant. As you know, the MBLC grant pays for 75% of eligible construction costs. These include costs such as architecture and engineering fees and building construction expenses. However, there are other costs that the MBLC grant does not cover. These include landscaping and paving, furnishings and equipment including furniture, shelving for books and other printed material, and legal fees. Very simply, the eligible costs are primarily those associated with the construction of the building itself, while non-eligible costs are those expenses associated with the inside and the outside of the building. The Friends fundraising will help the town pay for these non-eligible costs. We also plan to use the funds raised to create an endowment to help fund program expenses not covered by the Town of Webster annual library budget, which might include such things as adult programs like author discussions, historical presentations, and concerts, or children's programs like sing-alongs, magicians, and book readings, or specialized equipment like a laptop loan program or a 3D printer. Our fundraiser goal is $2.5 million. To date, we have contributions and pledges equaling approximately $1.75 million, so we're well on our way. We'll accept donations at any gift level. In reaching our financial goal, small contributions are just as important to us as those provided by large contributors. Donors will be recognized at all levels, starting at $1. As mentioned earlier, to help support the new library construction costs, the Friends intend to help town taxpayers by offsetting those library costs not eligible for reimbursement by the MBLC grant. Our cash contributions to the library will be made over multiple years. The amount we may donate to the library each year will depend on several factors. First, the final dollar amount of the library costs, which were not eligible for funding under the MBLC grant, and secondly, the amount of fundraising cash that is received by Friends each year, particularly from fundraiser pledges that will be donated to us over multiple years. We'll be asking the Board of Selectmen to accept our donations to be used by the town to help offset the non-eligible library construction costs incurred by town taxpayers. We are currently working with Pamela Duke, the town accountant, to establish an accounting process to meet the Friends requirements to make the annual donations. Anyone interested in more information about our fundraising effort on cable can contact me at 508-943-8586 or call Amanda Grenier, the library director at the library. Contributions can also be mailed directly to the Friends of the Chester C. Corbin Library, care of the Town of Webster Library at 350 Main Street, Webster, Mass. Thank you for your time this evening. Any questions?
Great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Mr. Chairman, just
Yes.
a question, Tom, if the town were to, we've already approved funding for it, we've borrowed money for it, so how do you split that amount between what you're gonna keep for an endowment and what the town is going to borrow. Because the town could borrow everything, could it not? And then you could keep everything for the endowment? Is that?
Oh, we could, but that's not the purpose of the fundraiser. We haven't, we will determine what the exact split will be when we find out what our final fundraising amount is.
Okay.
But we're hoping to pay as much of the non-eligible costs as possible.
Because that's the balance. You
Yeah,
could
that's
maybe
the
tuck a
balance,
lot
yeah.
away and then create the endowment, or, okay. I
Yeah,
just didn't know how
it really
that's
depends
split.
on how much non-eligible costs are out there and how much we eventually raise.
Because the town is, no matter what, the town is gonna fund that.
Right, yeah.
That's
Through,
gonna fund that.
through the
And then
authorization.
We're working with Pam to figure out how we can use our funds to decrease the principal amount.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom, is there a deadline for the fundraiser, or is it?
We'll probably shut down the fundraiser about the time the library opens. But it may last a little bit longer than that, depending on the fundraising that we do up until that point.
And that's a great segue, Mr. Chairman, for a question. Any anticipated date? Sorry to
You'll
put
have
you on the
ask-
spot.
You'll have to ask the building committee about that. Thank you.
Do you want to answer?
Dana?
It's a May-ish. Of,
May.
yeah.
As soon as possible, from my perspective.
And it's looking great. If you've seen it, there's at least two sides are now.
Yeah,
have
it
some
is,
bricks on
it
so
looks
it's-
great, yeah. Yeah. Okay, thank you for your
All right,
time.
thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Tom.
Right, next item on the agenda is a status update for the Webster Fire Department with Chief Hickey and Deputy Chief Jolda.
Evening.
Good evening.
Greg, you doing the IT stuff tonight?
We got Greg here. Turn it on. Oh, you gotta turn it on? There we go. Well, I'm sure Chief Hickey needs no introduction, but we can introduce him anyway.
Brought
May
along
not
Deputy
recognize
Jolda with us tonight. Thank you for having us this evening. Well, that's queuing up. Put together a presentation.
It's showing up. I just gotta give my,
I did want you to make you aware of one of our members is currently going through treatments for cancer. Lieutenant William Gendro has been doing cancer treatments for the last couple of months. His prognosis is very good, and there will be a fundraiser for him in January, the end of January, so I just want to make you aware of that. Willie's been a member of the department for about 15 years. He's been a member of Quinnebog, and I think he's an auxiliary member over in Southbridge also, so.
So real quickly, a few things we're going to cover. In the past, we did the citizen survey, so we'll just review those data points that are specific to the fire department. Then we have, the chief has a lot of statistics from this past year on a number of fires and other incidents. Briefly go over the budget, and then we have an organizational chart for the fire department. So I will cover this slide. Sorry, you can't read it very well, but the first one is quality of local fire protection services. So the ones that are really high are the highest scores. So everybody loves the fire department. Across the board, for all the different departments, the fire department scored the highest as far as quality, and everyone seems to love them. And then how quickly fire personnel respond to emergencies also scored very, very high. So people are certainly satisfied with the services they're receiving. And then when we asked about the highest priorities of the town that were related to public safety, fire EMS came in as the second most important. And Chief, I'll let you read some of these. So.
Kind of hard to read from the angle I'm at. The total calls to date are 697 for the year. Last year, we were over 860 calls for the year service. We did a total of, I believe it was 31 structure fires to date. So these statistics are just things that we pull out of our system, tells us kind of, what types of fires we went through. Structure fires, you have car fires, hazardous conditions, false alarms, of course, are a big amount of our calls. And when it tasked as a false alarm, it's not always that it's just false. It may be just because somebody, burnt food or whatever the case may be. It could be labeled or something like that. But that's pretty much it for that.
Yeah, so Chief, the calls do seem quite a bit lower than last year, unless December is always a huge month. Is there anything that you think is
December is a horrible time of the year for the fire service, historically.
Lots of Christmas lights?
Yeah, tragically, there's so much tragedy has happened in December over the last several decades in the fire service, so we always get nervous when December comes around. So again, with the stats, alarm responses, malicious calls, false alarms. Structure fires, we had one intentionally set fire, one intentionally set car fire this year. Injuries, we had one firefighter who was injured at the beginning of the year. He was slip and fall on the ice, broke his wrist. And the time of day for the incidents, if you look between 11 and 2 o'clock, pretty consistently across the board is like the highest percentage of the day. It's more frequent on the weekends, mainly because people are home and they have a tendency to have different things happen right around lunchtime, I guess, so. This is continuation of more things that happen in our area. We didn't have any fatal fires this year, thankfully, so had, like I said, just one injury. That's pretty much it. So, general overall, total incidents are 697 calls for service. Structure fires with a dollar loss of 31. Some of the more memorable fires throughout the year were obviously 34 East Main Street was one of them. We had a fire over on the end of Malden Drive, which was pretty substantial. And just over the weekend, we had a fire at Leonite Corporation. Came in as a large fire inside the building, and thankfully, we had 2 trucks on the road going to a training that just left the station. So our response time was pretty quick. We were able to get in the building really quick, knock the fire down. We were able to talk to the people who run the business, gave us some good information on how to shut the machine down. And then we averted, of course, we had a report of somebody that was missing in the building, so he was found fairly quickly. There was no injuries there. So this is just the numbers showing what each truck is, the numbers they've responded to date. We try to change the trucks out. Engine 1, Engine 3 swap from headquarters to Station 2. We swap them out quarterly so that the numbers, their hours and mileage tries to stay the same. Those 2 trucks were bought at the same time, so it's kind of tough to keep the both trucks at the same without moving them back and forth. Engine 5, we set up a little bit differently in the last year or 2. It now has rescue equipment on it. So instead of rolling Rescue 1 out to every accident call that we have, we're now running Engine 5 because of the way we're set up and we structured for our shifts. We have people on in-house. We've done extensive training for extrication across the whole department, so they can respond with that truck, and if it's just a quick, pop the door or something real easy, they can handle it. If they need more help, they'll call back and we'll get the rescue truck on the road. So Engine 5, his time has come. This truck was built from the old school design. It's an enclosed cab with the engine in the middle, in the back part of the truck. Part that scares me about this truck is if it ever flipped over, I'd never be able to get the people out of the back of that truck. It's that cramped in there where I'm concerned about the safety of the firefighters. You never think that that would ever happen when a truck would flip over, but Just over the summer, Dudley's ambulance almost got flipped over by getting broadsided by a Big Mac truck. So, I mean, things do happen, and occasionally we try to avert as many things as we can, but you never know what's going to happen. But, so Engine 5, if we replace that truck, we'd like to get a truck with a little bit bigger tank in it, so it can handle the areas of town that don't have a water supply, like the Upper Gore area, Blueberry Hill area. It'll give us a little bit more water for a little bit more time to give us a suppression before we can get the tanker trucks on the road and get them on scene. So we're looking at maintenance on the trucks. Engine 1 and Engine 3 just got back from their annual pump services. Engine 1, when you send a truck out for a pump service, the basic pump service is about $800. But when they go into it and start finding problems with the truck, it ends up costing closer to $4,000. So that truck was $4,000, and Engine 3 was like $4,600 to repair for the pump to keep it up and operating. And these are mandated tests that we have to do annually for these trucks. So every truck that has a pump, we have to send it out for pump testing, as well as your aerial trucks have to all go out for aerial testing. So Ladder 2, that truck is being used as a utility truck right now. It has water emergency stuff on it. I'm not allowing anybody to use the aerial piece on it. I don't feel that it's safe to use. It was built in 1952. It was transferred onto this cabin chassis in 1996. The last time I had it certified, it cost us $8,000 to get the truck certified. So that was the last time I was going to get that thing certified. So by eliminating the ladder truck, it takes the maintenance out of our scenario for that truck. Our tanker truck is close to 30 years old at this point. So the amount of service that the truck is used for is minimal, because our area of town that doesn't have water has been reduced just down to the Upper Gore Road, upper part of Route 16, Blueberry Hill area. So when it does go out, it typically goes mutual aid somewhere. But it doesn't make sense for us to spend $500,000 to replace this truck when I can try to keep it rolling as long as we can. I'm not looking to eliminate the truck immediately, but if something catastrophic happens to the truck, that's a decision we're going to have to make as far as, you know, what kind of money we want to spend to take care of a very small area of town when I have mutual aid companies that have numerous amounts of tanker trucks that are on our run card now that come in an automatic response for those areas. So now we're looking at reducing the fleet. We've already reduced it once. We got rid of Engine 4, which is a 1974 pumper. So when we're looking at replacement of trucks, we're looking every 3 to 4 years to replace a truck to try to keep them viable and within the 15 to 25 year lifespan of the truck. So that's why we had Engine 5 on the town meeting warrant this past fall.
Yeah, and I appreciate the chief doing that, because a lot of fire departments or fleets in general, they'll have fleet creep, and they get an old truck and then they feel like they have to replace that truck, and the chief has actually analyzed it and looked at it, and because he's done that, be able to save close to $1 million not having to replace vehicles that we don't necessarily need, and then there's the ongoing maintenance and operating costs of those vehicles as well.
So one of the things that we wanted to do when we took over as full-time, when I took over as chief, the inspectional services for the fire department. Part of our inspectional service, the oil burner inspector, was outside of the fire department. It was contracted to an outside person, and we had a lot of difficulty keeping that in order. So we ended up taking that into the fire department. We went full-time. Thankfully, I have 2 very qualified people on staff to be able to go out and do burner inspections. And Captain Adams, I've sent him out for training specifically for inspectional services, and has taken the task of revamping our inspectional schedules. So some of the things that we're looking at in the future, we do quarterly inspections at all the nursing homes, the healthcare facilities that we don't currently charge for. So that's something we're looking at. We need to start charging to do those type of inspections. They're required by the state to have us go out there and do them. So last year, this is fiscal 16's numbers, last year, 17. So our numbers for inspectional service brought in over $60,000 in revenue through inspectional services. Also, we're part of the nuisance property task force, and we're also part of the opiate task force. So the nuisance property task force has really evolved over the last 4 or 5 years, and we've done a lot of good for the town, I feel. We've taken a lot of really bad structures in town and had them either removed or revamped. The building commissioner has been a big part of that, as well as the tax office, your assessor's office, the police department. So, you know, it's a very big task, and when you start dealing with nuisance properties, some of the issues you run into are the bank, some are bank-owned or in the process of being bank-owned. So it's a frustrating process because it's very time-consuming. It takes a lot of time for us to get the process actually done. So that's where we're at today. This is just a roster of the department. So we run 4 groups throughout the fire department. They rotate from midnight till 7 a.m. Sunday to Saturday for on-call, because we don't have any staff in the station from 12 midnight till 7 a.m. So each company is split up and they do rotate. Everybody takes a week to be on call. Currently we have 33 paid members, we have 10 members in training, and we have 1 member that's unpaid as a support role as our chaplain.
That's it, right? Yep. So, yeah. If there's any questions the board has for the chief or the deputy, I'm sure they'd be happy to answer those.
I have to at least ask a few questions. So, Chief and Deputy Chief, we have a lot of activity on our railroad track. Could you talk a little bit about, you know, maybe what's going? I know Chief Hickey and I have talked about this a few years ago. You know, we see some black tankers going down. How would you deal with that?
Coming through the town of Webster, you have the trains come through. We met with the P&W Railroad a couple of years ago, and their answer to us was, we can't tell you because we're a federally funded, federally regulated organization. We can't tell you what comes through your town. Well, I can tell you that there are trains that have 30,000-gallon tankers of ethanol, and there's at least 80 tankers in the train being pulled through the town of Webster. So that happens 2 to 3 times a week sometimes when they're busy.
And they're not required to be placarded?
They are placarded.
But you can read what's on them.
What they told us was that we can't tell you what's in it, so if you want to know, go down and stand there and watch them go by and read the placards. So we're very well aware of what's coming through town. Deputy Jolder actually found a trailer, a foam trailer online. It was being sold, was it Virginia? Virginia. So he put a bid on it, and he won the bid. And through the efforts of a private donation, we actually sent somebody down to pick it up, and it's now stored at our station too. It carries 500 gallons of alcohol-resistant foam, came with it. That alone is worth $20,000, and that is specifically for any type of ethanol issues we have in town. Very concerned because one of the commerce buildings is right on the railroad tracks down there. So it's a tough area. If something did happen in a downtown area off that trains, it's going to have a very large impact on the entire downtown area. So, and that 500-gallon tank that we got is not going to go very far with a 30,000 times 80, whatever that comes up to. I mean, you won't get them all breaking free, but the potential is there.
Do they have a lot of mutual aid ability to help out?
We do, but it's time consuming to get this stuff organized. That type of specialized equipment would come out of Worcester, Upton, Grafton, those areas. And then there's caches stored in different areas in the state that we can rely on for that type of thing also.
Thank you. Didn't mean to put you on the spot, but
no, that's fine.
This actually is tremendous because we have the ability now to start the fire suppression while the assets are responding, which we didn't have before. We get a price, one of the salesmen that calls on us, looked at the trailer, he said, you were gonna buy it, it would be 50 grand. There's $20,000 worth of foam in it. I think we got it for about $3,800.
From a fire department?
No, it's from an airport.
Airport.
Yep.
Anyone in Webster knows how resourceful Deputy Chief Joel
Yeah.
is. He can,
He took a
So, you know, to give credit where credit's due, I mean, Deputy Jolder, as well as other people in the fire department, through the process of doing the renovation of the fire station, had done a lot of work that saved the town a lot of money. So, just, you know, kudos to the guys in the department for stepping up and doing the right thing.
And through the chair, just one other question. If you were to lay awake at night worrying about things in the town of Webster, the fire department's responsible for to deal with, what would it be?
Response overnight, that keeps me awake at night.
The lack of a...
Yeah. It's been a gap for quite some time, and we need to fill that gap. As far as...
Are we the only town, are there other towns that don't have full-time? Are we a minority? Are we a majority, unfortunately?
We're in the minority when it comes to that. Other towns run EMS as a primary, so they're staffed 24/7 for EMS. So, but they do both. So they answer to both fire and EMS calls while they're there. So, but as far as other hazards in town, the nuisance property task force has been doing a really good job trying to keep up on some of the issues we've had in town. I don't think there's any other large hazards that we've run into that.
I mean, I would add, some of those nuisance properties, so with the fire loads that they have in them, with people storing junk and garbage, those are probably very significant. And a lot of them are in the dense areas of town.
I would just like to add, Chairman Becker, backing up a little bit,
Get a promotion.
when we have, through Chair?
Yeah.
When, family, we have people at the station, whether it's a full-time people or call people, which take the shifts from 3 p.m. till midnight. We get a truck out the door, average 2 to 3 minutes. We've had, I want to say, over 20 instances this year where it's been 18 to 20 minutes from midnight till 7 a.m. Just because it all depends on the weather, and you get up, get dressed, get out, scrape your car off, drive to the station, put your gear on, get in the truck, you drive to the scene. So it's huge. It's a huge difference.
It's something the town has to face, I think, at some point. Unfortunately, it happens after a tragedy.
Well, that's usually what happens. So, but on the other side of that, having staff in-house has saved us from a lot of tragedy also, because the response times are pretty quick now. So we've had some fires that we've knocked down very quickly that never make the paper, so.
And last question through the chair, and not a question, but a point. Chief mentioned Webster EMS, just to remind the town that the town is the beneficiary of not having to pay for Webster EMS. And most towns, I would think, do have their own.
Yeah, no, I don't believe they charge the town anything.
Yeah.
So I want to certainly thank Webster EMS.
Phenomenal organization.
And very much involved with the town. Like, even though they're not part of the town, they work very closely with the chief and the police department.
We have a very good working partnership with the EMS, the police department. We've all worked very well together, the building department, the town hall employees. DPW, absolutely. It's a very, very good team you have in Webster, so, and they're good people to work with.
Except for when it comes to the Christmas light competition, which we definitely, the fire department definitely.
We're definitely lacking with only one set of strings across Main Street, right?
Yes, that's right.
That'll be
But
on
if you
the
go to the fire department, it looks good.
On the to-do list for the...
Next year, maybe.
That's right.
We'll add a couple more strings.
Thank you, gentlemen, all your, hardworking.
Well,
and,
thank you for your support, we appreciate it.
You guys jump into houses that are on fire. I still don't know how you do it, so thank you all for what you do.
Thank you.
All set?
All set?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Next item is the Webster Safety Committee recommendations of Kenny Pizzetti.
Mr. Chairman, on this one, I'm going to abstain.
Well, thank you.
Good evening. Just wanted to give a quick update here, which as you can see is very short. We had Jeffco Fibers Company, they approached us several times with a couple safety issues as they have it, just for the simple reason their location. So it took a couple meetings just to get a little organized to see where we could go on our end as far as the town to try to help them. And we came up with this one right here, where if you can see, it's kind of simple and basic. It's signage. It's something that cities and towns sometimes don't prefer to do for the simple reason they will be posted on our actual poles themselves, you know, which is our property. But in this case, which we knew from the first time we met them, it was really tough for them. They just didn't have any place to go. And in this circumstances, we watched this over easy 6 months. Their truck drivers, their companies, they don't always get the message. It goes from one transport company to another, the direction. And they've been trying to fix that for years. And unfortunately, the GPS system at times takes them up School Street and tries to make a turn onto Park Street in there. And sometimes vice versa, they're coming down Negus and they end up on May Street. I have no idea how they make that turn. But in this sense, there is no guideline by the state as far as the Uniform Traffic Code for Mass DOT. Sometimes they prefer not to have any type of signage on your own, for recommendation from them for cities and towns. But due to the safety factor here, I think we can help the whole neighborhood. There's a lot of kids around there. You know, nothing bad has happened, except maybe, well, you know, if it's your car, I guess it's considered bad. If it's your offense, it's considered bad. But that's the type of damage that's been done so far when these trucks get hung up. So this is the proposal we were asking the board. It's pretty simple. They will purchase, I should say, all of this product, and they were offering also just to come out and, you know, put this in place. I think, as I spoke to one of the owners there, you know, I would rather, you know, us be there with them. It's just for the simple reason to help them kind of put these up in place.
Yeah, this is a very easy solution to fix a problem that can drive people crazy.
I mean, we're hoping it's gonna. They send out notices to their trucking division all the time. It's just, sometimes it gets subcontracted to another company, to another company, to another. So there's so many trucking companies that there's a lot of hands there, and they miss these simple emails or whatever they may be.
If I may, you can stay on School Street in the course of a few hours.
Yeah.
And you see them trying to make this corner and back into where the fire station is.
Right.
Well, last week, I had somebody just come into my driveway and parking lot, come out total wall apart
No
and
kidding.
took off.
Yeah. You didn't know where to go.
Thank God I
Yep.
wasn't there. But how he got out of the driveway with a 52-footer, I have no clue.
No.
But he did tear off part. I was only out of there for 15 minutes. I said, give me a break.
Right.
But it is the GPS. And
Yep.
there's got to be, and they're a good company. I mean, I don't have any problem with them or anything like that. But the GPS is definitely screwing the drivers up.
Right.
And I think we can all attest to that if we put in a GPS and it tells you to take a right instead of a left, and you have a problem. But if this is a simple fix with a simple sign with the help of Jeffco
right.
company and so forth, I would even go right out right now and say, we'll make a motion to accept any improvements that the safety committee would like to do.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to accept the recommendation by the safety committee. Is there any other discussion? If not, Jen, will you poll the board?
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman Duffy?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Jolda?
Yes.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can we skip to the municipal aggregation program? Marlena is here and.
Absolutely, I was just gonna ask if you wanted to take that out of order.
Patiently waiting.
Well, I tried to warn her not to come till 7, but she still wanted to come anyway. And I'm going to hand out this. It's our municipal aggregation plan, and Marlena can explain it a little bit more. I need to switch. Marlena, do you want to introduce yourself while I try to?
Sure. Excuse me. I feel like I'm off center here. All right. Hi, I'm Marlena Patton. I work for a company called Peregrine Energy Group. We've been hired by the town to implement the electricity aggregation program for the town. And so our role will include, or is already including, drafting the aggregation plan itself, moving it through the regulatory review and approval process that's required by the state. Then once that's done, we'll help the town go out to bid to procure the electricity supply contract. Then we'll help with the public education period that happens right before launch. And then we will provide customer support after the program is up and running. So we're kind of with you through the whole thing, and we endure after it launches. So the reason I'm here tonight is because as part of the regulatory process, there's a requirement that the aggregation plan document, which I'll tell you what that is in a minute, needs to be presented in a public meeting and available for public comment for a period of time. So this evening is that public meeting, and the plan will be available for the next few weeks for public comment. And what the plan is it's a very high level document that doesn't include any details about what this program is going to include, or the electricity pricing, or which supplier you're going to work with, or anything like that, because all of those things get determined much later in the game. And I'm going to go through that, give you a kind of a summary of how it's all going to work in a minute. But the plan is a high-level document that assures the state regulators that Webster will abide by all of the requirements, the regulatory requirements around implementing a program like this. So when you read through it, or if you've already read through it, you'll see that there isn't a lot of meat in the document, and that's intentional. It's meant to be very high level and to provide Webster ultimately with the broad authority to implement the program as it wishes to when the time comes to make decisions, rather than trying to make decisions now and embedding them in a document, and then down the road you see some electricity pricing, something's different, you change your mind. So it's intentionally broad. This is a template that the DPU has seen several times already, and we refine it every time we go through. They come back with some feedback and we refine it further. So this is something they've seen several times before. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through kind of the basics of what electricity aggregation is and how it works, just to make sure everybody's comfortable with that, and that's kind of set out in the document as well, and take you through a little bit of the timeline, such as I can, because there's a lot we can't control yet with the timeline. So for starters, municipal aggregation, or municipal electricity aggregation, is a group or a bulk electricity purchasing program. So in Massachusetts, just to back up for a minute, in Massachusetts, as you may know, there are actually 3 ways that you as an electricity customer can buy electricity. You can either have your electric utility, National Grid, buy it for you, which is what most people in Webster do, and that's called basic service. And on the supply part of your National Grid bill, it will say basic service, and the rate that is charged to you is the rate that National Grid is paying. They just do it as a straight pass-through to you. So that's the first way. That's what most people do. The second way is you can respond to some of the offers you may get over the phone or in the mail from electricity supply companies. And if you do that, then on the supply part of your National Grid bill, you'll see that company's name instead of basic service, and that company's rate instead of National Grid's rate, used to calculate the supply part of your bill. The third way that you could buy electricity as an electricity customer in this state is through municipal aggregation. And Massachusetts is one of just 6 states that allows this. And with an aggregation, instead of you making that private contract, your municipality makes the contract on your behalf and uses the bulk purchasing power of the community to negotiate a better price for everybody. And so the key features, as I mentioned, it involves the supply part of your National Grid bill. So National Grid remains the local electric utility. In Massachusetts, electric utilities are really just delivery companies. They're not also generation companies. So that doesn't change. The relationship with National Grid doesn't change. The second bullet is a really key piece, and this is the state law. All National Grid basic service customers, so the first category of people who have not selected an electricity supplier themselves, will be automatically enrolled into the program. And that's a requirement of the state. You don't have an option with that if you're going to roll this program out. Those who have already established a contract are welcome to enroll if they wish. They just have to choose to enroll. And then the third bullet is an important piece to follow that with, which is that anybody can get out of the program at any time. So there is the automatic enrollment model, but there is no requirement to participate. And this is what sets the program apart from many of the offers you get in the mail and makes it a different kind of alternative, which is that while the town signs a contract and locks in a relationship with a supplier and a price, the individual participants are never locked in. There's no minimum participation period, and there's no early termination fee, which you do often get with these other supply agreements. Additionally, there will be a notification mailing that goes out before the automatic enrollment happens, and people will have the option to get out of the program even before it launches if they wish. All right, so the basic benefits are savings. So the goal is to beat the average of the National Grid basic service price. Remember, the basic service part of your bill, that rate that they charge you, that changes every 6 months. They're required by law to go out to bid every 6 months. So typically what you get is a lower rate in the summer and a higher rate in the winter. And so right now we're in their high rate period. And what Webster's going to try to do is sign a contract for a longer duration than 6 months and hopefully beat the average of the National Grid fluctuations during those 6 months. Now, we can't guarantee savings with a program like this because we can't tell the future. We don't know what the National Grid price is going to be beyond the rate period when you sign the contract. But the hope is that the bulk buying power of the community can help to negotiate a rate that's favorable enough that it provides value over the long term.
Sorry to interrupt, but
sure.
Marlena and I did this in Grafton, and the price in Grafton was lower for both the summer and the winter rate, so it was a win-win altogether there.
Yeah, Grafton's done very well. You're right. And what the price is actually at the time you go out to bid really depends on where the market is, where regulatory costs, and all these different factors. So the next benefit is choice. This is an alternative to the offers you get in the mail. It's an alternative to basic service. And the town has the ability to include an option with the program for folks who want to increase the amount of renewable energy in their electricity. So this is something people would have to opt into. But by having options like that, you give folks more options, more choice, more control over their electricity. Predictability, so I mentioned the steady year-round price. A lot of folks tell us, when I take calls from the public, they tell us that they like the stability of the price. They don't have the seasonal swings, the really high in the winter and low in the summer. They know that the rate that is going to be used to calculate that portion of their bill is steady. So it's a big benefit for a lot of folks. And then transparency. So you're going to give folks a well-vetted, town-vetted alternative to the other contracts that they might be presented with. So this is a transparent process. It's state regulated. There are no hidden fees. There are no hidden costs. There's no price that's going to change down the road. So this is a great alternative, in fact, to some of the other offers that you get in the marketplace and to basic service. So from the participant experience, it's pretty seamless. As I mentioned, there are just 2 changes that you see on your bill if you participate in this program. One is that the rate that's used to calculate the supply part of your bill changes from the basic service rate that National Grid offers to the program rate that the town has contracted with the supplier for. And then instead of it saying basic service, it has the name of the supplier. Otherwise, nothing else changes. Specifically, participants continue to get just one bill from National Grid. There's no additional electricity bill through this program. National Grid continues to deliver the electricity. They're still who you call if the power goes out. They're still the ones that do the maintenance on the poles and wires. If anyone has solar panels and they get net metering credits on their electric bill, that still works the same way. Those credits are still calculated based on National Grid's basic service rate, not on the program rate. And anyone who's eligible for a low-income discount also continues to get that discount unchanged if they participate in this program. So there's a public education program. I mentioned that right before this launches that we help with some communication. There's actually, this is a required effort. Between when your electricity supply contract is signed and the program launches, there's typically 8-week window there. And there's a requirement in that window that the town embark on a public education or public information effort. And the goal there is to make sure that everybody who's going to be automatically enrolled knows that it's coming, knows what that means, and knows that they have the right to opt out. So we help you with that. The key piece of this is the letter that I mentioned previously, which is a mailing that goes out. There's a draft of it in the plan document that's sent because the letter has to be approved by the state regulators. So we put in a draft. This draft, we can modify it before it gets submitted to the DPU. There's actually a 2-part regulatory process. So right now it's sitting with the Department of Energy Resources. Next it will go to the DPU. So we can modify it a bit before it goes to the DPU. I say that with the caveat that the state regulators like to modify it back. What you see in there may seem very dense, and that's most likely because we've had a lot of input over time from them. But this draft of the letter, the style and this language is something that's been approved by the state regulators multiple times. So this starts the process, really. The supplier bears the cost and the burden of mailing this letter. It goes out in an envelope that bears the town seal, that looks as close as possible to your town letterhead because there's a requirement that all program communications be clearly identified as coming from the town. And in fact, you want that so that it separates it from the marketing materials that are coming in from other companies. So this goes out, the mailing is covered by the supplier, executed by the supplier, and goes out to everybody that's going to be automatically enrolled. Now people know this is going to impact them, this is going to affect them, and they start to have questions. So we schedule public information sessions. Typically, most communities schedule 2 or 3. We always do at least 1 for seniors, then maybe a couple for the general public. We can do however many Webster wants us to do. We can also do them for any other special groups that you may want us to meet with. So whatever works for the town, that's something that we can shape to work for you guys. We have the website already up. Right now, you can access the aggregation plan from the website to review it, read it. When we have the supply contract signed and we actually know the price of the electricity and the duration of the contract, all of that information will be up on the website. And that's something that my company maintains for you, but it's available from the municipal site, and there will ultimately be a permanent link to it from the municipal website because there's a regulatory requirement that this website be available. And then we provide customer support by phone and email during this time as well. So this is when people can start opting out of the program if they choose to. Once they get this letter during this public information period, they can already start to opt out of the program if they wish. Trying to think if there's anything else. If there's anything else that, as we get closer to that Webster wants us to do from a public visibility perspective. Some communities want us to put out banners. Some communities want us to do, I've done radio interviews, we'll do a cable access interview, anything you guys can think of that really makes sense to make sure folks understand the program and are comfortable with it and know their rights within it. We're happy to work with you to figure that out. I think there's another one. I saw the cursor on there somewhere. Well, we can flip to the paper copies if you guys have that. There's just a couple more.
So
There's really just one more slide that I wanted to, which is a timeline. I don't know, do you guys have any? Okay.
They don't have that.
They don't have this?
I just gave
Okay.
them the aggregation plan.
Well, actually, I have paper copies, I can hand it out, would that be helpful? It's just one slide, but it might be helpful just for your reference. So second to last slide has a timeline on it. This is a question. Everybody has. When is this all happening? So I mentioned this is a regulated process. It's a lengthy one that we don't have a lot of control over right now. So right now, as you'll see, we're in the public comment period, so that's extending into January. We've also submitted the plan to the Department of Energy Resources for the first part of the regulatory review. What will happen is the Department of Energy Resources will come back and schedule an advisory meeting with the town, during which they provide feedback, and the goal is really to make sure that the plan and the associated electricity supply contract draft that was also submitted with the plan are written in the town's best interest. So it's a consultative advisory meeting where they really try to work as advocates for the town to help us refine these documents before they go to the DPU. Then they give us a letter that says we met the requirement of meeting with them. They don't formally approve anything. They just say we went through this step. Once we have that letter, then we can submit everything to the Department of Public Utilities. Then they typically take several months to go through the process of a public hearing and then reviewing it. They typically ask informational questions. They might ask for revisions. Usually they do. And then ultimately, they should grant approval, because there's nothing that you folks are asking for that is any different from what any other community has done or out of the ordinary. That whole process from the DOER to the DPU finish has taken recently 6 to 8 months. We don't have any control over it. It might go faster, it might go slower, I just don't know. There's been a change in staff at the DOER, there's a new attorney working with it who may be faster. There's been some new staff at the DPU that we're slowing things down, but we think maybe they're up to speed now. The whole process, start to finish, could take about a year, though, between when we started it just now and when we finally launch it.
The winter's not a bad time to have the program launched, though, because the prices are higher in the winter, so you're for sure going to see savings at the first winter.
That's a great point. It's easier to get a price that beats the utility sometimes if you're trying to compare it to the utility's winter price. That's very true. There was something else I was going to say about the schedule. Yeah, so this is all highly variable.
I'm sorry, Melinda, does that pricing last more than 6 months? Can it be 18 months? Can it be?
So when we go out to bid, typically we ask for prices of different durations. The goal is to figure out where the market looks best. So we typically ask for prices for 12 months, 24 months, 36 months. We might ask for 18, and then sometimes the suppliers will even come back and offer maybe 19-month or 9-month, because they can tell from their pricing desk where the market has a really good spot. So we give the town multiple options to choose from on pricing day. When the prices come in, the decision has to be made kind of that day, but if you don't see anything favorable, we have the flexibility of then going out again later to find a different price.
If you did it for only 9 months, and after the 9 months, do you have to re-enroll everybody, or?
So you mean like the initial contract is just a 9-month contract? No, so it's really easy. After the 9 months, you would go out, or before the end of the 9 months, you'd go out to bid. And if you got a price you like, you'd sign a contract. It might be with the same supplier, it might be with a different supplier. But regardless of who you sign the contract with, everyone that's active in the current contract, that first 9-month contract, would then be automatically enrolled into the next one. There is a requirement then that whenever the town changes the price of the program, they do an announcement about it. So you folks would do an announcement, we help you draft that, you put something on the website, but otherwise it would be seamless for everybody that's in the program.
How many towns are you working with presently doing that?
I'm working with,
What have you done?
so I'm actively working with 18. I think 15 are up and running right now. And I drove past a few of them on the way out here.
Really?
And there's, I think there's about 125 in the state that have done this now.
This is like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And
You
it's
can leave whatever you
unbelievable
want.
that we've never heard of this before.
It's picking up steam, so it's definitely something that in recent years communities have become more and more interested in doing. The regulatory process has gotten faster.
Could actually do this.
Yeah, how long has it been available?
I'm trying to think since the 90s.
Oh, wow.
Well,
Are
so
you
the
kidding
Cape,
me?
no, the Cape, late, not recently, but like not early.
Municipalities.
But so the Cape Light Compact was the very first one that did it, that started it a long time ago. They're the oldest aggregation on the state. But when they started it, the regulatory process was really onerous. So nobody did it except them for a very, very long time. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, the regulatory process got a lot easier and faster. And so you've seen just an explosion of interest. And like I said, now I think we're up to 195.
This is common amongst bigger companies, and we've done it for 10 or 15 years.
You're right. So commercial companies have been doing this for a very long time. Yeah, going out to bid and getting a low price. But you'll find that it's primarily residential customers that participate in aggregations because of what you just said. Although we do get a fair number of small commercial businesses in there that may not even know that they could go out to bid, or sometimes the aggregation is in fact providing a better price than they're getting. But the large businesses typically don't participate in the aggregations because they already have contracts. Yeah.
Through the chair, do we have a census at this point of how many residential customers there are in total? How many have opted, for instance, my wife and I have a private company delivering
I have those numbers.
our supply? Okay.
She has those numbers.
I have those numbers for you. So right now, and this number I think is from the summer, because it comes to us a little bit delayed. So I think this is June or July number. With on basic service, so those that do not have a supply contract, you have 5,400 residential customers and 770 non-residential customers for a total of 6,170 customers. Those that have a supply agreement, it's actually a much higher amount than we've seen in many communities. 2,300 residential customers have already signed supply contracts, and then 425 non-residential customers for a total of 2,725 that are on supply contracts of their own. But that residential number is really much higher than we typically see. So it sounds like you have a pretty well-educated community about this topic, which is great.
Or good door-to-door salesman.
Those 6 p.m. phone calls.
It's not a good thing. Yeah.
Our neighboring communities, Oxford just recently did this, and Charlton. They did actually through another company, and they actually experienced a few hiccups. And Peregrine did a great job in Grafton. They have a very good reputation, and so we're more than happy to continue with them.
I just wonder, you didn't bring this up if we ever would have heard of it.
Sorry,
If
what?
we didn't bring it up.
If you didn't bring it up, we never would have heard of this.
Oh, yeah.
You know, this should have been done years ago in this town.
How does Peregrine get compensated?
So we're compensated on the back end. The supplier carves out a piece of what they take and gives it to us, and the amount is 1/10 of a cent per kilowatt hour that comes through the program.
And the percentage savings that I know you can't guarantee anything, but 1% savings is different than getting maybe 10 or 15% savings if it's half of your electric bill. What did you see in
I had the
Grafton?
numbers for Grafton. So the negotiated rate was 9.014 kilowatts, something
Really
like that.
low.
And
Yeah.
the current national grid's 10.8 cents per kilowatt, something like that. So that's
10 to 15%.
Yeah, we typically tell communities not to overpromise on savings, in part because you can't predict it, right? You can't guarantee it. And in part because the savings isn't going to be enough to buy anyone an island, which we all wish it would. But the actual savings, I think for the communities I work with annually, it can be sometimes as low as $20, sometimes it's like $60, $70 a year for a household. It really depends on how much electricity that household is using, and then also kind of where the market is, on where your price lands, and then what happens after that. Does the utility price go up and up? Right now, we're in a funny period where the electricity market's really flat and has been for a long time, but the regulatory part of that price is really high in Massachusetts. That regulatory piece is going to start to come down, but then we anticipate probably the actual electricity market will go up because it's been so low.
So
We don't know.
the natural gas supply cost, which is extremely
Has
low
been very
right now,
flat, yeah.
if that goes up clearly, you know, your spot rate is going to go much higher, much quicker than if you're locked in for 18 or 24 months.
Yep.
Because it probably can't go much lower.
Right, exactly. It's been very low recently for a long time. Yep.
Any other questions?
Yes. Oh, Earl?
Can you opt in at a later date if you opt out at the?
Oh, great question. So if you opt out at the beginning, and then say the National Grid price spikes, can you get back in later? So mechanically, yes. Typically what's written into the contract is that the supplier has the right to charge you a market rate if you opt out and then opt back in. Now this is a contract that the town can agree to, but this is typically what's in there. And the reason for that provision is because if the supplier has to bear the risk of a large number of people gaining the system, and every time the National Grid rate is favorable, they leave, and every time the National Grid rate is unfavorable, they come back. It's very expensive for them because they bought that electricity up front already. So anything that's risky equals price. So anytime you can put something into the contract that reduces the supplier's risk, it opens the door for them to lower the price that they're bidding. So that's why that provision is typically in the supply contract, and it's in the draft contract that we would have put together for the town already. So what we tell people is, if you opt out and then opt back in, you're not guaranteed the program rate, but in practice, if you're a small customer, not a commercial customer, many suppliers will go ahead and let you back in at the program rate. You're just not guaranteed.
Second question is, as far as if you already have a different supplier that says you end the end of 18, are you going to be notified at that point?
So if you already have a contract at the time this program is launched, you would not receive the notification letter and you wouldn't be automatically enrolled. You would have, it would kind of be up to you to then figure out when your contract is ending, what you want to do. You could sign a new contract with your existing supplier, you could go back to basic service, or you could come into the town program, which you just do with a phone call. The information to do that will all be on the program website. But at that point, it's really going to be up to you. Mechanically, the way it works, the supplier that the town signs a contract with won't even get account information for anybody that's on a supply contract already. It won't even be sent to them, so there's no way for them to send a letter and communicate with you.
But that's like a change of status. You know, if someone, in Earl's example, your contract runs out December of 18, this thing kicks in, let's say June of 18, you can still, because you've never opted out, you can basically get in.
Yeah, you're right. That's a great point. So the only time that you might not get the program price is if you choose to leave and then try to come back. Otherwise, yep, you get the program price.
For the remainder of the duration.
Correct, for the remainder of the existing contract that the town has. Yep.
So this will be, the aggregation plan will be available for public comment till the beginning of January. So if there's anyone that has a comment, they're welcome to contact our office. I think we even put Jen's phone number. So, good luck, Jen.
And this is on the web? This is on the webpage?
Yeah, it's on our webpage.
I did it and then I asked you if that was okay after I did it.
Better to seek forgiveness
I hope that was okay.
and ask permission.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Right, under consent items, we have approval of the Board of Selectmen's open session meeting minutes from October 30th, 2017, and November 13th, 2017, open session meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to accept the pre-town meeting, regular session on October 30th, 2017.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, Jen, will you poll the board?
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman
Miller, it's Miller. Bob,
Selectman Miller?
yes.
Selectman Dolgevich?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Joseph?
Yes. And do we have a motion on the Monday, November 13th?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All right. Jen, will you poll the board?
Yes. So Mark and Bob were not present. So Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Jolda?
Yes. Right. Now the town administrators report.
So I'll make this quick because I was told that the Patriots kick off at 8:30, a couple of things. We were going to have the lateral transfer appointed tonight. He has been sworn in officially, so he is currently in training. Skipping down a couple of these, we had a Narcan training in the senior center the week after Thanksgiving. We had a few people attending, and they were able to get information and be able to sign up to get Narcan. And it was very successful. We're grateful for the Worcester AIDS Project and the Worcester Sheriff's Office for helping us out with that. This past weekend was kind of a busy one for the town. We had the Winter Wonderland both Friday and Saturday. I want to thank the fire department, the police department, Wind Residential, and Carol, the new recreation director, for their hard work doing that. And also there was as you know, a big snowstorm. I think the highway department did a great job. I was driving all over the place on Saturday, and Webster definitely had clean roads, at least cleaner than most. We are working on our open space and recreation plan. Later this week, we'll have a survey available on the town website, and we'll put it on the town Facebook page. It's pretty basic, but I'll ask what people's interests are in open space and recreation and what facilities they would like to see in town. We have the DOR. They are planning on coming next Monday at 7 p.m. To give them time to come out to Webster to discuss their financial management review. We also had an auction on the 29th of November. We brought in $157,000, just over that. I want to thank the Treasurer's Office for taking the initiative and getting those out and sold quickly. Skipping down a few more, we had the Holiday Bazaar, and that was a great success, and thankful for Santa Claus and all his efforts. And we have a RFP out for operating the marina at the beach. So we've had actually surprisingly, well, more interest than I expected, so that's a good sign. So hopefully we'll be able to find a vendor that will be able to help us out with that.
I'm sorry, what is the due date?
I think it's the 27th of December. Under infrastructure, the water treatment plant, we have our pre-construction meeting next week. The contractor will be on site and will provide us with a detailed construction schedule. We also received a $7,000 grant today from our insurance company. They're going to provide us with access to it's a software company called Dude Solutions. It's despite the name, it's actually very popular. Our school department already uses it, and what it is, it tracks the maintenance for facilities that needs to be done, and they also come out and they'll look at all your buildings and do an analysis to see what needs to be fixed and repaired. So they'll check out the roofs and the HVAC, et cetera. Continuing down, I've asked Jen, and she has agreed to find a long-term approach to assisting some of the homeless population here in town, so she is very excited about that. Well, I don't know about that, but she's willing to help us to find a good plan for that. And part of that is potentially joining up with the Blessed Backpack Brigade, which now has a drop box in the lobby. We have a final draft of our personnel policies from the Personnel Advisory Committee. So we're going to spread that around, get public, or not public, but comments from staff members and department heads to get their input on it, and then we'll give it back to the Personnel Advisory Committee for a final review before it's delivered to the selectmen. And let's see, the assessor's office is doing a food drive if anyone's interested in helping out, and the food collected will go towards the Webster Dudley Food Bank. And earlier today I sent out a link to the town's new website, what it will look like. So if you have any comments or questions, feel free to let me know and I'll pass those on to Greg. It certainly is a very, I don't know, a very professional and nice looking website. So we're excited about that. Then attached, so today, is it today or tomorrow, is my 1-year anniversary here. So I wanted to...
You were hired on December 11th.
Yeah, so 1 year exactly. So in here I have the goals we set previously when I started, and then some goals that we may want to consider in the future. What I would like to do is at our next selectmen meeting in January to have a discussion on where the board would like to focus some of our energies and resources. That'll be a good timing because we'll be preparing the budget and we'll perhaps be able to direct resources to where the board thinks we need the most help or where where we want to focus on. And then the last page there, these are some of the goals that were suggested the last time that we asked the board for goals. So some of these may be the same, but I just didn't want you to have to rethink all those, so I made it available for you. Are there any questions?
Motion to accept.
We have a motion to
Second.
accept, and a motion, a second to accept the town administrator's report. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Jen, will you pull the board?
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman David?
Yes.
Dugevich. Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Jolda?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, this is a little bit out of order, but can we back up on the November 13th meeting? I just came in a little later. It just said I wasn't present.
No, it should be noted in there when you came in. At the beginning, you weren't there.
In the beginning, I wasn't.
So that's why I would say that in the beginning, but it should say in there.
Okay, no problem, no big deal. Just thought for the record. Because we don't want to have any problems. Not you and I, John, but I'm talking in general.
It was after the
Look at my
police.
Yeah, it was after the police thing,
Yeah.
because you made the motion to
Right.
enter into the public hearing, open the public hearing for that, to address at that point.
So in case anyone's looking at it and says, oh, wait a minute, you know,
Not a problem.
just a technicality.
That's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sorry, the next item on the agenda is a discussion and a request to charge a fee of $25 for those who submit a building, electric, or gas or plumbing or mechanical permit at the building inspector's office. So right now, we just launched the Viewpoint, which is the online building permit, all permitting software. So what we're trying to avoid is, paying for this service, but still people come in and they want to fill out the paper copy, and it's kind of a waste. The online system has a tracking method. We're able to make sure that the permits are getting processed timely. So it's actually the best benefit for those applicants that are applying as well. But we already had people say, no, we're not going to use that system, and so we wanted to charge a fee for the time it will take for someone else to type in all their information into the system.
So as long as they have the option
Yeah,
to do no pay.
Yeah, right, yep. And you can do it at home, you can do it in the office at the computer, and someone can walk you through it.
Okay, so we will have a terminal available
Yep.
in the town hall?
There's
Should
two.
somebody want to come in and fill it out
Yep,
themselves?
there's 2 computers available
Okay.
for it to be accessed.
So moved.
So you need a vote?
So we have
Yes.
a motion and a second
Second.
to approve the additional $25 charge for any permit if the applicant chooses to do so by paper. Any other discussion? If not, Jen, will you poll the board?
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman Dolkevich?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Jolda?
Yes. Right, the next item on the agenda is discussion on the future of the Fillmore Filmer School Administration Building located at 41 East Main Street.
Yeah, so I met with the superintendent and the business manager today. They are still optimistic that they'll be able to move over the winter break, at least move some of the desk or materials to the office. They won't be out of the actual Fillmore building for several more months after that. And to dispose of the property, we'd have to do that at our town meeting anyway. So, but we do want to get a jump on this, and we want to start soliciting proposals for the administration building. So I wanted to know if the board wants to put any restrictions on what may go with the site. We could go with just the highest price that we get, that we can receive, or we could put some stipulations on it saying that, well, if it was a request for proposals, they'd have to actually say what they wanted to do, and then we could grade it on how it would fit into the neighborhood, the potential for tax revenue coming from there, or anything we really wanted to put in it. So my recommendation is that we essentially go with the highest price that we get back with but have it a proposal so that we can ensure that that's not something we really don't want in the area. So we
have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah, so we have the best of both worlds.
How about any thoughts of maybe speaking with Mr. O'Brien, who's one of the local developers in town, maybe doing something like a private public partnership on the piece, and maybe doing a pad site for a lease and bringing a monthly income to the town instead of just selling it one shot?
Yeah, so we could certainly, we could even do the proposal as a outright sale or a lease, so we could continue in perpetuity to receive lease payments.
Yes.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think, I see what you're saying, Mr. Dolkevich, but a building of that age with any problems in it, if we got into a lease.
No, I mean,
type-
it'll be torn down, but I mean like a pad site.
You sure? I don't want a Quonset hut there either, you know what I'm saying? Those are
Well, no,
also-
but we'd have control over what would actually go
Oh,
there.
what would go there, yes.
Right.
But I don't want to be responsible for taking it down out of the town, for that matter. What do you think?
Well, I'm just looking at the future, that 10 years from now, we'd still be generating a monthly income. I don't know what kind of a price location like that would dictate per month, but I'm
You
just
gotta-
looking at something long-term.
Because you have a building with probably a couple $1 million worth of problems.
Right, but we also would have probably better access to grants to get rid of, abate those types of problems, correct?
I mean, there's a potential for that. It is, it's not a registered historic building.
No.
So, which is probably a good thing, because the school superintendent 10 years ago had an analysis done of the building, and 10 years ago they said that it needed to be torn down, and I'm sure it has not gotten better.
I'm just looking, from funding for the future, always having,
Right.
something coming in as opposed to one shot.
Yeah.
And
One thing we do have to keep in mind is when the original article for the funding to do the renovations at the high school, the article was presented to the townspeople where the building would be sold and any proceeds from that sale would be applied to reduce the costs of the renovations at Bartlett High School. So that is one thing that the board does need to remain cognizant of.
Yeah, perhaps we could ask for proposals to lease or to sell if the most advantageous was a lease. we could ask town meeting to adjust it and have the lease payments
Payments go
to
towards the
him.
principal of the
Right,
debt.
exactly.
Just want to get
Yeah.
the most money.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
Instead of seeing the town,
Yeah.
as usual, take a hit and,
Right, leasing might be more advantageous in the long run, like, I got it.
Mr. Chairman, just two questions.
Yes.
One, has there been any mitigation of asbestos and/or any review of any environmental issues, oil tanks in the ground, et cetera? Do we have any information on that?
No, so the detailed analysis hasn't been done, so we would have to have a hazmat company come in and review it.
And then, secondly, you mentioned, what we might be able to do with the property, to make sure, I think we want to have a floor. We don't want to have someone come in and low bid it at $10,000 and all of a sudden we're stuck with that. So
Yep. Yeah,
whenever we're doing that, we want to have a floor based on some kind of appraisal.
Yeah, so again, several years ago, someone threw out the number that it was worth $400,000. We could have the assessor look at it or have an appraiser look at it. But we can certainly put a floor in. Even if we don't put a floor in, if we don't like the proposals, we're free to reject them all.
I mean, I agree with Mr. Miller that a building like that probably does not make sense to try and renovate. You'll end up with a money pit.
So, from the conversation, my impression is we just keep it wide open,
whatever's best for the town.
Yeah,
We can make the most amount of money.
Yeah, we'll accept anything that makes
sense.
Highest and best use.
Yeah. So, do we want to put any? My concern is if we put some sort of evaluation into it, like, for instance, other communities, they'll say that it has to be redeveloped within 2 years or 3 years, and depending on the plan, they get more points if it's going to be done sooner. So I think we'd all like to see it turn around quickly. So that's one option that we can do. Also, if it's going to create a large number of jobs versus not as many, they could get more points. So.
Through the chair, would it make sense for you to come back maybe
with a full
with a concrete?
with the
Yeah,
full- yeah,
you've thrown a lot of good ideas there.
Yeah. Okay, so I will draft the proposal, request for proposals like that, and we'll just bring it back to the board. I mean, this can't be done until May anyway, so we have some time.
I mean, I think for me, through the chair, based on what you did for the RFP for the marina, I'm quite comfortable with you putting this together, because I think you did a great job with it.
Google's very helpful, so.
But you did Google it, so.
That's right.
Wherever you copied it from would be very flattered, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's.
Right, so moving on with the agenda. We have the review and vote on the renewal of local licensing authority issued licenses for calendar year 2018. So what we can do is we can take this by section, by license type, and vote on them in blocks.
Yeah, before you do that, I just want to point out that we will, before any licenses are issued, we'll make sure that all their outstanding
Subject
fees
to
and
meeting
taxes
any-
have been paid before we hand
Correct.
it over. And one more thing, there's two that are of note. There's the Mini Mart. They did not return their paperwork, even though we reached out to them. Jen did several times. So I would recommend that we don't approve that one tonight. If they do come in, we can approve it at our
Throw
meeting
it.
next Monday.
Where's that one?
Mini Mart is it an all alcohol?
Package store.
Package store.
56 Main
Yeah.
Street.
Thank you. And the other one is the Jocelyn House. They've held the license in the past, but they are currently actively marketing the property. So that would make them eligible, but we would need them to show us the publicly available ad for that.
And Selectmen, what was the address again of the mini mart that we're?
56.
Oh,
56
56
Main Street.
56,
Right
right.
there.
Oh,
First
56,
page.
yeah. All right. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion.
How about the, okay, go right ahead, Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman.
entertain a
Sorry.
motion to approve the all alcohol restaurant licenses
Second.
with Johnson House being subject to providing proof of sale of property. All right.
Or subject to proof of it being on the market.
All right, property being put up for sale.
Yeah.
Oh. All right, so we have a motion and second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, just a recusal for myself on Point Breeze Pavilion, a pecuniary interest that I have in the property. And Wentiki is a familial interest my family has in the property. So I'll recuse on both of those, please.
I'm sorry, can you mention the first one again, please?
Point Breeze.
Right, any other discussion? If not, Jen, will you pull the board?
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman Dubkevich?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes, with those two recusals. Thank you.
Chairman Jolda?
Yes. At this time, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the all annual wine and malt beverage restaurant licenses.
Question, Mr. Chairman, is Lobster Nook still in business, or? is
Yes,
that-
I spoke with the owner.
did, okay.
They're going to be reopening.
Oh, okay.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion and second. Any discussion? If not, Jen, will you pull the board?
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman Dubkevich?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Jolda?
Yes. Next, I'll entertain a motion for approval of annual all alcohol club licenses.
Just a point of interest, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
And I'll make the motion, if I may. American Legion, Post 184. Says 18.
Well, that should be the.
That's all.
Second.
We have the motion and second. Any other discussion? If not, Jen, will you pull the board?
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman Dubkevich?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Jolda?
Yes. Right. I'll entertain a motion to approve the all annual all alcohol package store licenses.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Jen, will you pull the board?
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman Dubkevich?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Jolda?
Yes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the annual wine and malt beverage package store license, with the exception of not approving the one for Shizopoulos Vastilos, DBA Mini Mart at 56 Main Street. I did the best I could.
That was a mouthful.
So we have a motion.
Second. I think Mr. Beck.
All right, so we have a motion and second. Any discussion? If not, Jen, will you pull the board?
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman Dubkevich?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Jolda?
Yes. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve all amusement licenses.
Second.
I'll second it with discussion with
Yes.
the 184 Post, American Legion
Oh,
Post again.
correct.
That's all.
Right, any
Do we-
other discussion?
I'll second, and just recusal again on Point Breeze.
Right, any other discussion? If not, Jen, will you pull the board?
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman Dubkevich?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Jolda?
Yes. This time, I'll entertain a motion to approve all Sunday entertainment
So moved.
licenses.
Second.
There's a motion and second. Any discussion? Jen, will you pull the board?
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman Dubkevich?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Jolda?
Yes. And Is there a motion to approve all common vitricular licenses?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion with the exception of Jocelyn House providing proof of the property being put up for sale.
And I'll abstain on Coney Express.
All right. We have a motion and second. Any other discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, same recusals for Point Breeze and for Wintiki, please.
Hearing no other discussion, generally poll the board.
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman Dovkevich?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Jolder?
Yes. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve all Class 1 new automobile dealers licenses, Class 2 used automobile dealers license, and Class 3 automobile junk licenses.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion second. Any discussion? If not, Jen, will you pull the board?
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman Dovkevich?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Jolder?
Yes. Then we have approval for license for sale of gold.
So moved.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? If not, Jen, pull the board.
Selectman Bork?
Abstain.
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman Dovkevich?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Jolder?
Yes. And lastly, we have approval of pawnbroker's license.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? If not, Jen, will you pull the board?
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman Dovkevich?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Jolder?
Yes. Right. This time I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr.
Second.
Chairman.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second, third.
Any discussion? If not, Jen, will you pull the board?
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman Dovkevich?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Jolder?
Yes.
Just.